I'll tell you, this is our fifth in our series, Always Restoring the Always God. And yes, I am really going to conclude it today, for real, with that. I've enjoyed exploring, and hopefully you have too, the ways that God has moved and interacted in the past, and learning how He is still moving and acting today. With that, you know, the eternal, self-existent, all-powerful God has not changed over time. He is still the great I am, and today I want us to look at how God is still restoring, or He's always restoring. Now, there's all kinds of different things I thought about this. I told you somebody earlier, I thought about finding somebody who does pottery and being up here, and that was, you know, but then I did remember that's kind of messy. You know, we'd have to have guitar and all that sort of thing, but still thought it'd been pretty good with that. And but I got thinking about this as I talked about God restoring. And so, how many are you ever watched the Fixer Upper television shows? Okay, there's so many of them on there now. And I don't know if you remember the show called Fixer Upper, Chip and Joanna Gaines. Okay, so you know, at its height, actually, of everybody watching, they had over 5 million viewers that would literally tune in each week to watch their show. And for that short period of time, it was actually the highest rated show on cable television. Only behind, you ready for this? The Walking Dead. What can I say? Zombies and fixer-uppers. I don't know what to tell you on that one. You know, people love watching Chip and Joanna Gaines, and they love the show, and it's blossomed into a full-blown destination spot. You can actually go to Texas, and they've got a spot where you can come visit and see all the different things that they have. You know, and the premise behind the show is pretty simple here. That a couple buys a home that needs a repair and renovation, and to the rescue come Chip and Joanna. He leads in the construction, she leads in the design concepts, and of course, the climax of the show is about the last segment with the great reveal of a new home. Totally restored, totally reformed, if you will, with that. And that's awesome. You remember I can't remember the show that they did the home improvement, the big makeover, and they always had the big bus. You remember that one?
Extreme Makeover.
Yes. There we go. And then they'd always go, move that bus. Move, you know. And then they take the bus away, and then you'd see that aspect. And of course, it's like anything with that. I tend to watch Love It or List It. You know, I don't watch it a lot. Don't get me wrong, but if I'm flipping around and something else to watch on, I'll watch those things. You know, with that, and whether that's the transformation when those people walk through their house and they go, oh, that is amazing. And I don't know if maybe you've been like me sometimes, and my wife will say, maybe we should get on that show. I said, yeah, I'm not sure what that takes, but I think it takes money. Still have to have some money to put towards the budget. I'm sure they must chip in some. They ain't chipping in all that $100,000 or whatever, $85,000 that's being put up with that. You know, I thought about this week as we're closing out our series, and when reading here in Jeremiah, talking about the subs that we're addressing here, you know, Chip and Joanna, they repair and restore broken. You can change the show. Outdated, dilapidated homes, and it's a great picture. It's a beautiful illustration, though, of what God, you know, we watch this on, you know, reality TV, is what we kind of call that, you know, but God does that with our lives on a regular basis. You see, He takes broken, marred, dilapidated, if you will, and as we read our text, spoiled clay, and He fashions it. He forms it, He molds it into something special. something special. Jeremiah 18:1 through 6 says this. It says, the word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord, arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I will let you hear my words. So I went down to the potter's house, Jeremiah says, and there he was working at his wheel. And the vessel he was making of clay was spoiled in the potter's hand, and he reworked it into another vessel, as it seemed good to the potter to do. Then the word of the Lord came to me, Jeremiah says, O house of Israel, can I not do with you the same as the potter has done? Declares the Lord. Behold, like the clay in the potter's hands, so you are in my hand, O house of Israel. Jeremiah is being told, and his attention is gotten by God telling him. He wants to teach him this valuable lesson about what can happen. Jeremiah has been known as the weeping prophet because, you know what? Nobody liked to see Jeremiah coming. Because every time Jeremiah gave news from God, it was never good. You know? Oh, here comes Jeremiah. The crowd disperses. Nobody wanted to be around him. They didn't want to see him coming. Now, the message that this object lesson communicates, though, is pretty simple. The potter has power over the clay. And the potter works this clay, forms this clay, molds this clay to take whatever form or shape the potter desires. The clay, in order to conform to what the potter's design, must be worked and reworked. The lumps in the clay have to be smoothed out where it is spoiled and marred. It has to be remade. And if you've ever known anybody who forms and works with pottery, you know many times you see a finished beautiful vase and they could tell you the number of times that they started over because it was marred. It had a flaw in it. It was spoiled, if you will. And this is an incredible picture of God and how he works in our lives. And I want to basically look at three simple points here this morning. The first one's very obvious. We are all broken. Now, some mornings when I get out of bed, I feel more broken than others. Or when I'm coming home from work and I'm feeling a little more broken than others. But the truth is that it's not talking about necessarily a physical nature. The synonym for the word is found in Jeremiah is spoiled. Now, of course, when I think of spoiled, I think of the refrigerator and my milk. You know? Have you ever unknowingly taken milk, not paid attention, looked good, and you pour it on your milk or whatever, pour it in your coffee or your tea? You know, I put it in tea. You all don't put it in tea. I do. Well, I don't like tea anyway, so I really don't put it in tea anymore. But that being said, you know, and all of a sudden the other day I realized I had this half gallon of milk, and I went to pour it, and I went, and the first bit out went plump. Never a good sign that it's good milk, okay? Just in case you're all wondering that, okay? It was spoiled, or enough that I wasn't going to eat it, use it with that. That aspect, that spoiled, and that's gross, right? Nobody wants to eat spoiled or see something that is spoiled or something that is horribly marred and broken. And Jeremiah uses this same word actually in chapter 13 to describe a belt that he was commanded by God to bury into the ground and later dig it up. And after he digs up the belt, he described it as being ruined or spoiled. And it was good for nothing. The NIV says it was useless. It was broken. Is there anything worse than something breaking? Or you're trying to do something and all of a sudden, you know, you can't do it. You can't finish your task or whatever it is. It is broke. Okay? You can't finish the purpose, if you will, for what that item that you broke was created. And we are all broken spiritually. We are all broken. And that's what sin does. It corrupts us. It mars us. It breaks the relationship between God and humanity. Romans 3:23, we're reminded, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Translation using Jeremiah's terms, for all of us are spoiled. And the only solution for spoiled clay is to be refashioned and remade by the potter. That's the picture of salvation. The only solution to sin, to the brokenness of our lives, is the gospel. When we submit our life to the potter's hands, he begins to form and fashion and to make us into what he wants. 2 Corinthians 5 calls it a new creation. Let's reflect on that passage for a minute. You know, Jeremiah is a prophet, and the message he proclaimed for 40 years, like I told you, one of judgment. Nobody wanted to see Jeremiah coming. It was judgment for Judah. He predicted that Jerusalem would fall to the Babylonians and that God's chosen people would be carried off into exile. He's called the weeping prophet because the reality of what he prophesied broke his own heart. It's important for us to note this object lesson that God gives him refers to the people that God has. He was in a covenant with them. He was in a relationship with them, the people of Israel. And look at verse 6 again. Jeremiah 18:6 says, O house of Israel, can I not do with you as this potter has done? Behold, like the clay in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand, O house of Israel. And I highlight that just to make the point. Once we have been remade by God and entered into a relationship with him, that doesn't mean that we have arrived. Did you catch that? Somehow we think it's a done deal and boom, it's done. But when Peter talks about salvation, he says continually work out your salvation with fear and trembling. It's a journey. It's an ongoing process. And sometimes we think we've arrived. We think we're the best looking pop there is. You know, salvation is when God's shaping work starts in our lives, not when it stops. And like the people of Judah over time, even those of us in a relationship with God, we're gonna eventually, from time to time, we're gonna step out of his will. We're going to choose to live the way we want to live. We're going to sin. We're going to be in disobedience. And we can make decisions that cause lumps to form in the clay or cracks, imperfection. And that's the point that we learned in this valuable lesson, the same one that Jeremiah did. Clay